Hey guys, welcome to the Far Side, and this is the Obi-Wan Kenobi Episode 5 breakdown. Let's discuss Annie and Obi-Wan reminiscing their prequel days, Leia fighting with a Hydro Spanner, and Jedi communicators are basically open books. I'm your host Migs, and as always, careful for spoilers across Star Wars shows. Here we go. Last time, Ben saved Leia from Fortress Tombstone, hiding her inside his jacket, hoping nobody would notice, using Tala's Get You Anywhere clearance card. Then all three get inside a T-47 airspeeder cockpit. You know the small ones they use in Hoth? Right, Breezy. Oh, and that guy dies. But we're back in Coruscant, and this time it's not a freaking nightmare. This appears to be during the events of Attack of the Clones before the war. Anakin's still a Padawan learner based on his iconic hair braid. Once passed, the braids are removed in a ceremony where the Padawan kneels, much like knights of old. His Jedi robes, although aesthetically fashioned after the Order specifications, are somewhat dark, reflecting his propensity to dark side and made of leather to show his combative nature. As Obi-Wan arrives, we see that the mullet is back. Notice the contrast of his light robes, indicating his preference to negotiation and subtlety. And he says Obi-Wan's late but shows a respectful bow. To which he replies this time he might stand a chance, indicating to Anakin always getting the upper hand during these sparring matches. Then they raise their lightsabers in salute and begin the duel. Hard cut to Vader waiting the third sister. Notice how this mirrors him waiting for Obi-Wan in the prequel's flashback. As she arrives, he makes it clear to go straight to the point. Reva says Obi-Wan is on his way to Jabim, after which Vader makes her Grand Inquisitor, also by having her kneel. Now here's the transport ship carrying Ben, Leia, and the gang just having escaped from Fortress Inquisitorius in Nur. Little is known about Jabim other than it's a backwater planet located in the Outer Rim, which makes it a perfect hiding spot. As you can see here, there are two ships inside the hangar. That's going to be important later on. Once they arrive, we see the refugees of the path. Haja is back, saying after he helped Ben in episode 2, he was hunted by the Empire. Ben wants to leave, but Roken wants to help the others first because their window's closing. Back to Vader's Star Destroyer, not the Executor by the way, its construction would be after the Battle of Yavin. As they approach, Vader orders Reva to lock down the facility. Obi-Wan sees more Orabesh writing on the wall.
The light will fade, but is never forgotten.
He sees lightsabers on the side too, but don't worry, we checked no matches for popular characters. These were just the lightsabers left or discarded by former Jedi who've gone through the path and started new identities. The Empire burns these ones. Noteworthy ones are used as trophies, like here in Fortress Inquisitorius. We see Lola under the control of the enemy. Notice the blue lights turn to red. And watch these vents open and close by itself. Like magic, she burrows into a wall of cables and closes the hangar doors, locking the refugees inside. Obi-Wan says an attack is coming and Vader will not wait for a prolonged siege. We cut back to the prequel sparring scene where Anakin is on the offensive, which is a parallel between the two events. Obi-Wan says Anakin grows too aggressive. This is demonstrated in the prequels, his massacre of the Tusken Raiders, at his mother's torture and subsequent death, his headlong attack against Count Dooku. Anakin says mercy doesn't defeat the enemy, which is a fundamental difference between the Jedi and Sith philosophies. One aims to gain swift victory and the other to preserve life. We see Vader in frame next to Jabim. His large stature in comparison to the planet indicates control and the advantage he has over Obi-Wan. Launch the attack, he says. Again, we see the low-angle shot of the Star Destroyer like in A New Hope. Obi-Wan finally takes on a leadership role and dictates their defense strategy. Having been in similar circumstances during the war, among the crowd, we see this Tarzan, like the New Republic Chancellor we see in Force Awakens. A Trandoshan family here, like the bounty hunter boss, a Nikto from Kintan like the biker gang in Boba Fett, blasted to a million pieces by Boba's Slave One ship. These troop transports are different from the T-4A shuttles we see from the original movies, and looks to be a precursor to the First Order AAL-1971 in Force Awakens. Now we see a montage of them preparing their defenses. This droid looks like a cross between an R2 and BB series astromech droid. As the Empire arrives, we see waves of stormtroopers led by these purge troopers. These specialized soldiers are employed by the Inquisitors against Jedi or Force users. At times, they are even trained in hand-to-hand weapons like the Electrostaff to engage lightsaber-wielding opponents. They also brought what looks like the artillery version of the E-Web heavy repeating blaster. Then Reva arrives to shout what to do. The gang panics because the hangar doors won't open. Hadja said to check the vents and Leia volunteers. Obi-Wan tells them to trust her and asks Haja to look after her. Then goes to check his communicator. He watches Bale's message. He's worried and says he hopes they don't find about the children. Then says he will go to Tatooine to help Owen with the boy. A bit too much information if you ask me. I'm just saying they could have used codes or something. Tala approached Ben and tells him about the time she helped the Empire kill Force-sensitive families, and that's why she helps families on the path to atone for her sins, the number of which are etched in her holster. Ben realizes how he can also fight to atone for his past failures as well. As the Empire nears breaking the door, Ben stalls them to gain some time. Rogan appears to be holding a bowcaster, commonly used by the Wookiees. It's actually quite heavy, but Han Solo seems to handle it with no problems in Force Awakens. Reva agrees, but as they approach on opposite side of the doors, Ben uses the Force to gain insight. He figures out that Reva knew Vader is Anakin because she was once a youngling in the temple during Order 66. She recounts her chilling experience. We learn that she played dead and hid beside the bodies of her friends. Now all she wants is to take revenge on Vader for what happened. Ben offers to help, but Reva asks where he was during this time, then proceeds to cut down the door like what Qui-Gon did in A Phantom Menace. As the doors break open, Obi-Wan pushes them all back with the Force, the power of which causes almost all of the troopers to fall. This stops them momentarily, but here we see the Empire's full-on assault strategy to employ these disposable soldiers en masse to overwhelm the enemy. Leia, on the other hand, being rushed by Haja. As they fall back into their secondary position, Ned B uses its strength to throw enemies back like K2SO in Rogue One. But Tala is shot and Ned B protects her using its body for a shield. Ben is unable to save her, and before she sacrifices herself using a thermal detonator like the one Leia uses in Return of the Jedi.
May the Force be with you.
The only one in the series so far. In Vader's Star Destroyer, he commands Reva to stand down as they already have Kenobi. This is a good tidbit into their strong connection as they are fully aware of each other's mindset. Cut to their duel with Anakin getting the upper hand, which is the same as the current situation.
No way out, Master.
This move of bashing the enemy into submission he used during their first encounter in Mapuzo, and will also be used by Luke during Return of the Jedi in the Emperor's throne room.
Admit you are beaten.
Ben, knowing that he needs to surrender, gives Haja his lightsaber, communicator, and blaster. He says there are other ways to fight. Reva looked a bit surprised at his surrender, but Ben says he is bringing Vader to her and tells her not to let the past repeat itself, and that there are families and children here. Obi-Wan says Vader will be focused on him and she can take this opportunity to have her revenge. It's a miracle no one hears this conversation right next to these loyal soldiers. She then consents and two stormtroopers bring him inside. Back to their duel, Obi-Wan sees an opportunity and slips by Anakin. This mirrors events in Jabim where Obi-Wan uses Reva as the opportunity to escape. Anakin continues his assault utilizing his iconic behind-the-back move, like these times in Attack of the Clones, and this during their Mustafar duel, and eventually disarms him. Obi-Wan says that his need for victory blinds him. Going to Jabim, Ben escapes and apparently Vader falls into their trap. Leia, on the other hand, finds Lola, but it attacks her. She finds a restraining bolt. Previously, these were just restricted to specific commands to enforce obedience. Luke removes R2, enabling him to find Ben in A New Hope. It actually requires a control unit too, but here it seems to be controlling actions. Anyway, she removes the bolt and finally opens the hangar doors with Lola's help. Now the refugees run to the ship where they could have been this entire time. As Haja runs to the transport, he drops Obi-Wan's communicator. He actually sees it but leaves it there for some reason. Vader enters the transport and uses the Force to halt it mid-air. He eventually pulls it down and rips the doors open in a display of strength. He finds it empty though. Then the real transport containing the refugees fly off into space. Now back to their duel, Kenobi able to reverse the situation, then Force snatches Annie's lightsaber from behind. Then Obi-Wan says this, "Your need to prove yourself is your undoing. Until you overcome it, a Padawan you will still be." Which brings more weight to Vader's statement in A New Hope. "Last time I was but a learner, now I am the master." I think that this is the natural conclusion of the conflict between these two characters for the series, having Obi-Wan overcome Vader in such a way that he was still learning from him. To me, is a good stopping point, and all that remains is to close out Reva's arc. As Vader remembers his master's words, Reva takes position and attacks from behind, but her thrust was blocked by the Force. Vader said he was wise to use you against me. Next, we see Reva's attacks are easily evaded by Vader. He's not even using his lightsaber, basically just toying with her. In a fit of rage, she ignites her second blade and finally uses the disc mode. Vader halts the blades and eventually pulls it to him. He breaks it in half and throws one to her. Initially, I thought using his blindside would work, but I guess not. He throws the saber like in the final confrontation with Luke, but she deflects it. As he disarms her and force pulls the other saber, she gets knocked down. He then stabs her with her own lightsaber, and she sees Anakin as he was in Order 66. Then Vader reveals that he knew all along, calling her youngling. Then the Grand Inquisitor reveals himself, taking back his insignia, and explaining why she's still alive. Revenge does wonders for the will to live indeed, because apparently you don't die when being stabbed with a lightsaber, which happened to her twice. This guy's been stabbed once. And someone should have really told Qui-Gon, because then none of this would have happened. Now cut to the refugee ship. Roken tells Ben that their hyperdrive is down and they are being pursued. But Vader just left. Well, maybe it's a different ship. As they leave her in the gutter, she grabs for her lightsaber. Then she sees Ben's communicator on the ground and sees part of the message. Maybe she learns about Luke. Ben then senses that something is wrong, like that time he sensed Alderaan in A New Hope. Then we end the episode with Luke sleeping soundly in Tatooine. Well, that's it for us, guys. We'll be releasing other episodes soon, so please watch out for those as well. We really enjoyed this one. We hope you did too. Please subscribe to our channel. Take care out there, and hope to see you on the next one.